With the go ahead from Mike. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Bristol Town Council meeting of December 22nd. The clerk found my gavel. Wonderful stuff there. We could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. On behalf of the town, we wish you all happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the first item of business is the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item of business is the submission of minutes, and this is for the town council meeting on December 1st and also the executive session meetings on December 1st.
Also motion to approve?
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the public hearing, and we have Vanderhoof Inc. doing business as Roberto's at 450 Hope Street. And this is a request to transfer the Class BV intoxicating beverage license to Richard Correnti, also doing business as Roberto's, and this is for new ownership.
So this is a public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here to speak in favor. Come on up. If you could state your full name and address for the record.
How you doing? My name is Richard Correnti. I live at 15 Verndale Circle, and I'm the owner of Portside and the new owner of Roberto's.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good to talk. Good to see you again.
You too.
Nice to see you too.
So I guess I'm in favor of it.
Gosh, I would hope so.
You sure
There
about
you go.
that?
I would hope so.
This is also, go ahead. Please.
Yeah, no, you tell me. What am I supposed
No,
to do?
so a public hearing, we asked for both sides. So,
Okay.
and the council stays neutral at this point, so we can listen to both sides. So we're interested to hear why you're in favor of.
Oh, I
Roberto's.
got you. Okay. So I am in favor of the transfer because without a liquor license, I'll go out of business really fast. It's detrimental to a food and beverage establishment. It's had one for Roberto's had a liquor license the entire time. That location's had one for about 10 years now, 9 years. And that's it.
Is there any questions? Richard?
I'm just happy that you're keeping the menu, the same,
Yeah.
keeping this type of place the same.
Yeah, I think that it makes a lot of sense. I think when I was a little kid, every restaurant was an Italian restaurant. And in the last 10, 15 years or so, everybody's gotten away from that. So, we went from every restaurant being an Italian restaurant to now it's like more of a scarcity. You gotta go, if you don't go to Roberto's or one of the 2 or 3 other places we have in town. And even the other Italian places in town, they're great, but they're just not Roberto's. And I think that's a real special location. I had my wedding rehearsal dinner there myself, Bob, on a Friday night back in 2010. Closed the whole restaurant for us. And
Your wife disagrees with the date that you just expressed?
12? 2012. Sorry. We got together. Whatever. Anyways, we're getting off subject here. Anyways, it's a lovely place. It holds a real special place in my heart. I think it's a great restaurant. I don't really do any major changes to it. We're changing some of the seating on. I'm actually bringing back the original head chef, Bob Myers, from 20 years ago. So if anything, we're turning the clock back a little bit on Roberto's. No major changes. The menu is going to be the same, a little bit smaller. But we're not making any drastic changes. It's going to be just a high-end Italian restaurant.
And you keeping the name Roberto's.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was a big part of the deal.
Richard, I'm really happy that you're taking over Roberto's. To be honest with you, it's one of those establishments that's kind of been an anchor in town.
Yeah.
And it's been with us for a long time, and it draws a lot of economic development. It brings people in from all over. I think it's going to be a great establishment for you, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Is there anyone else to speak in favor? Please. You could state your full name and address for the record.
Yes, Robert Vanderhoof, 217 Hope Street, Bristol, Rhode Island.
Welcome.
I'd first like to thank all of you for how good you've been to me over 20 years. Thank you all. I think Richie is making this a lot easier for me than it may have been if it was somebody else. I have a lot of faith in Richie. I think he'll carry on the Roberto's traditions, and Neely's coming back to manage. My original chef is coming on board. And I think it's going to be a great thing for the town. I think Richie will carry on the traditions and keep Roberto's at a high level, and that I'm proud of over 20 years. And that's really all I have to say. And I wish Richie all the luck in the world, Richie and Caroline. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Oh, Bob, you can't leave yet.
Yeah,
Wait,
Bob.
just 1 second. I'll start with my
You're gonna
colleagues.
start?
Well, no, go ahead, please.
I think you know what you're gonna say.
Go
No, I don't know. No, first of all, thank you. Thank you for the 20 years. You said 20, correct?
20
And yes, I remember you being down the block.
20 and a half, yeah.
And a half, yes. And then to move here to where you are right now. Well, we certainly appreciate all the support you provided the community throughout those years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
And the best, to come, I'm sure. Enjoy your years.
Thanks.
I wanted to say the same thing. I mean, you've got a great establishment. People come from, from everywhere to go to Roberto's. And it's really when you move down to this block here, this block there, in the center of town, it's really become a centerpiece for that area. And as when you open the other additional room, I mean, I think that you've done a fantastic job. And, I don't know if you're sort of retiring, but I wish you all the health and happiness that goes along with that, because you've worked hard to build a great business.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, Bob, I wanted to say that your leadership has been crazy in town in regards to just as far as outside dining. I remember when I got on the council and you wanted to establish outside dining, and we all as a council, we worked with you to make sure that happened.
Yes, you did.
I mean, that changed things in town, as well as being part of the community and being part of the Halloween walkabouts. You're always there for the community, and we're going to miss you. I hope you're going to stay in town and you're going to stay involved.
I love this town. I'm not going anywhere. I'm
Good.
Staying here.
Excellent.
So my colleagues captured it quite well. To share a quick story, not about you, but about local restaurants. Somebody that I know from town had talked about his high school. It wasn't his reunion, it was his high school dance, and they were going to local businesses asking for support. And they went to a local business who happened to be a restaurant, and they asked that person for support. And that person said, you need to support me too, because I want to be here for a long time. And I can only do that if people come back. You have been an outstanding support structure for a multitude of nonprofits around town. Certainly Mount Hope Farm is one that comes to mind, but that is one of many. And your willingness to give gift certificates to support their good endeavors, and not just Mount Hope Farm. I know it's a multitude of nonprofits. And I think my dad likes to say you can tell a quality restaurant by how clean the bathroom is. It's what you
Guess
can't
who
see.
scrubbed the toilets every
See
morning?
that?
Oh,
So-
wow.
So an outstanding job, Bob. You've done a great job. It's an honor and a pleasure. to know. So,
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate everything. I appreciate everything you all did for me, and the Historic Commission as well. Everybody was wonderful. And it was a pleasure being part of this town, and I'm still going to be part of this town.
Good, good.
Thank you very much.
No,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else to speak in favor? Of course. If you could state your full name and address for the record.
Caroline Carenti, 15 Ferndale Circle.
If you could also state your correct marriage date too.
September 15th, 2012. I just wanted to say, I sat before you a few years ago when we were trying to open Portside, and there was a couple people that had, pros and cons about us having the liquor license there. And I kind of sat quietly. I had never worked with Richie, even though we had been married. But I just wanted to say, having worked with him for these last couple of years at Portside, his level of responsibility is pretty outstanding. And I learn from him every day. I don't even want to admit that to him, but
This is on
such
tape.
a
You might want to be
response.
careful.
He's so good at what he does. And I don't know if there's anyone here that's against it, but I think we'd only benefit the town. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
is there anything else?
Great.
Is there anyone else to speak in favor? Is there anyone else to speak in favor? Is there anyone to speak against? Is there anyone to speak against? Is there anyone to speak against?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motions and a second to close the public hearing. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. May I get a motion if the council is amenable, then maybe we can move D2 and D3 forward since it pertains to the discussion.
So move.
Second.
I'm sorry, and I apologize. So D1, D2, and D3, please.
So move.
Yeah, I did second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So D1, we'll start with.
Birdos at 450 Hope Street. This is a request for a Class BV intoxicating beverage license.
Make a motion to approve based on all the positive recommendations.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Mary to approve. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
D2 is Richard Carenti doing business as Roberto's at 450 Hope Street, and this is a request for a vitrilling license.
Based on all the positive recommendations, make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And the next
Congratulations,
item is D3, and this is Richard Carenti doing business as Roberto's at 450 Hope Street, and this is a request for a sidewalk alcohol service and sidewalk use license.
So this one has actually just a little bit more discussion on it. The request in front of this council is to approve the sidewalk use for our upcoming season. We have, and I'm going to ask the administrator if he could just expand upon it a little bit. We have recommendations in front of us to approve a portion of this request, but not all of it. More specifically, the what's being proposed that we approve. I'm sorry, what is being recommended that we approve is the tables that are adjacent to the building itself. What is being requested is those along with tables that would fit, I'm going to say this simply, between the trees that are right out in front of the establishment. Mr. Administrator, could you just expand a bit on why the recommendation to deny or not to approve everything?
Sure. So I concurred with the majority of the department heads who took a look at the configuration of the tables and chairs, and we just felt that it was in the best interest of public use to go back to the pre-pandemic layout of tables, which would be on the east side of the sidewalk along the side of the building, so that pedestrians, walkers would not be walking essentially through a dining room setting with tables on left and right. And especially with social distancing today, we thought it would be more appropriate to just leave it the way it used to be, one side of the sidewalk.
Thank you.
That's our recommendation.
Council?
I'm in support of the pre-pandemic design in regards to keeping everything on the east side rather than having tables on the west side.
I have to concur with that as well. I've always felt somewhat uncomfortable when I'm walking between folks who are dining on both sides. And I've watched some folks who also walk with their pets, and it's very uncomfortable which way can I move to avoid any contact with the diners. So I would suggest that if you can think of a way to expand on the building side, certainly. But on the other side, I would have to oppose that.
So I agree with my colleagues. I would also be amenable to, if you, I'd be happy to approve what was suggested that we should approve this evening. So just the east side, as Tim has said. But I would also be happy to consider a new seating plan with everything against the restaurant side. So it was a clearer path. So I'd be happy to approve the east side tonight. And if there was proposal for additional seating over there, happy to consider it in the future. Anyone else?
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I actually really like the outside dining, and I understand what you're saying about the, you're walking through or whatever, but I kind of liked it when you'd see the tables right along the street part of it. But would it be appropriate to just say we would, if it was just another couple of tables, that that they could work it out with either the administrator's office or with the appropriate department head, and not have to come back with that plan if it's just a couple more tables? I mean, he's asking for a bunch more tables, that would be something different. Because I'm thinking like,
Mike, I
put
can
one
add-
near the tree, or,
Maybe you can weigh in on whether or not it's possible. I think for myself, I would like it to come back in front of us, just because then there's an opportunity for the public is better informed about what's being approved. Certainly, Mary, your intention is to make it smoother. I get that.
Sure, I think if a new plan is submitted to the administration and the fire chief and police chief take a look at it, they might have a different recommendation. So I think your plan this evening to approve the east side for this evening, and then if they come back with a new plan that the administration feels will work, you can reconsider at that time.
So Mary's question was a bit different. She
Yeah.
was asking, could we, if we said we were okay with no more than 3 additional tables and defer to the administrator and his department heads for that approval?
I would ask the administrator if you'd be comfortable with that, or if you'd want to see a plan.
I think the plan would have to be submitted to them and not have to come back to the council. That was my point,
I
to
think
work with-
our recommendation was pretty clear. It was the east side of the sidewalk. So it's not a gauntlet walking through downtown.
No, I was
So-
talking, I think.
So if you're asking me to re-examine it, if the council takes a vote and you wish us to do that, we'll do so, but I'm not going to volunteer to do it.
No, I'm not saying, I'm not.
So for
suggesting that.
clarity, we're just keeping it on the same side as the
Well,
building, so
like
to
in-
remove the
Yeah.
tunnel effect.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And the
Yeah,
idea was to add
My
extra tables.
apologies.
Yeah,
I'm
it was
sorry.
just to add
So you want
maybe-
additional chairs on the east side, or additional
Well-
seating on the east side?
If, if there was like 1 or 2 or 3 more tables on that side, if it fits in, because that's a really wide
Oh,
sidewalk there.
absolutely, yes.
And so, I mean, I have no problem with them bringing it back, but if they make it simpler, if it was like limited to a certain number of tables, you guys could just approve it if you like the plan. And if it fit, that's what, all I was suggesting.
Absolutely, yes.
Mr. Correnti had
And
a-
again, I just took a hard approach on both sides of the sidewalk, because there are other restaurants that are going to ask for the same thing, and it's going to be unfair.
So far,
But-
this council absolutely concurs with you.
Right.
I think what we'd like to do, and I'm going to ask my colleagues if there's objection, and we're going to ask Mr. Correnti to just, I know he wanted to share some thoughts on it. But does anybody have objection at this moment of potentially approving or deferring, giving this to the administrator and department heads, and allow up to, say, for example, 3 additional tables if appropriate? So the applicant doesn't need to come back in front of us. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah, I think it's,
Okay.
I think it's the most efficient route.
Richard, do you want to come up and share? Please. You don't need to say your name again for the record. No, yeah, it's still you. Go ahead.
First, I understand what you guys are saying. And I just want to go on record saying, especially for Roberto's, because this is also gonna have effects on every restaurant in Bristol. And being somebody who grew up in the industry, who just survived very unprecedented times in it, I can tell you every seat, especially outside, because there are people who are not separated from this. This is their way of life now. They're not going into restaurants that don't have outdoor seating anymore, period, no matter what vaccination or what rules we set. So outdoor seating has become more valuable than it ever has been. And what this is doing right now for Roberto's is removing 8 seats from outdoor patio. People who aren't in the restaurant industry may not understand how valuable every single seat is. So I just want to go on record saying that I would like the opportunity to apply to get them back where they were during the pandemic. Because as far as I know, over the last 2 years, there hasn't been any issues with tables and chairs over there. It didn't cause any kind of stir. There were no car accidents or anything like that. It was great for the town. I think we had amazing support for it. Everybody loved it. And right now, I'm not just speaking for Roberto's. I think I'm speaking for every restaurant in Bristol. I think this is a huge kickback after we just survived. Like, you know, those of us that are still standing just survived so much. To take away some of those seats, I just think it's wrong. And Are we gonna get an opportunity to apply for that again? And at least try to get those back? Because those were huge, especially for a place for birds. There's only 60 seats in there. You're gonna take away 8 of my outside seats. And honestly, there's 6 feet of clearance in between where those tables and chairs were. And where those tables and chairs were, there's flower boxes. So you're not even taking away walking sidewalk. You're literally taking away the sidewalk in between the flower boxes. You're taking like standing room off of the sidewalk, not walking space. And I want to go on record, like that could be a huge blow to not just me, every restaurant that this happens to.
Can I just say one thing? I mean, I love the outside dining.
Thank
I
you.
love it. And, you know, probably if I had my way, it would still be set up right now, even as we're going into the new year.
I understand.
And, you know, I think that you're right. People, I think it looks great on State Street. You know, I mean, it could be fixed up a little bit, but it looks great. People want to sit outside. They want to be able to see that. I think this looks good. To me, it looked nice.
Yeah.
I'm not personally I do eat outside, but I'm not a huge fan of being on a sidewalk. That's my personal opinion, you know? But anyway, I always have a vision of Hope Street in Providence where there's a very narrow sidewalk and the buses are coming, pulling right up into a particular restaurant that I have in mind. I'm like, why do people want to sit there? But anyway, I think my point is not to take any seats from you. It really isn't. It was just to facilitate, like, right now, it's clear that some people have an issue with the tunnel effect going through. So it was either come back with a plan to put those 4 tables that you had on that other side back on the east side, you know, and configure that, or come and make a case for what you had. I guess that would be it. I was just trying to facilitate it so that you wouldn't have to come back.
I understand. Can I ask a question? Was there a lot of complaints about the sidewalk seating this summer? And was there any incidences caused by the sidewalk seating by Roberto's?
Mr. Minister?
Yeah, I'll say, as you stated, it was a pandemic. So there were a lot of people that were willing to cooperate with outdoor dining.
Well, I meant with
but
obstruction.
To answer your
Sorry.
question, there were people that are somewhat dismayed, people that would just want to sit on the public wall there. Even the State Street, and that was my order to put this, the emergency order was to put the outdoor dining out on the street, but we have some restaurants that pay rent for public property. We need to understand it's for use for everyone, not just for your restaurant. And your restaurant and Bob did a great job with the restaurant. It's part of downtown Bristol, part of our success collectively. It's no reflection on the business at all. It looks great when people drive through town and we see outdoor dining. We're just trying to stay away from wait staff crossing the sidewalk. It's a public sidewalk, and we don't want to start opening up that, opening up and expanding that where we're encroaching again on public space. It's a sidewalk for everyone, not just for the business.
So I'm just curious, am I going to get an opportunity to try to get that back?
You can certainly
This is the
petition.
opportunity right now, quite honestly.
So this is it, like, after this, it's just gone. There's no, you know, I can't try to get signatures. I can't try to get the town to rally behind it because I'm just out of curiosity. There's not going to be another opportunity. Because I mean, I thought what you guys did was wonderful. And it was, you know, when I'm buying this place, I'm looking at the seats and the layouts. It never even dawned on me that you would take it away because it was so successful. And I didn't know you got a ton of complaints about it. To tell you the truth, I thought it was great. And matter of fact, all I heard about was how great it was from my own point of view.
Can I just ask you a question though? Like, I'm just curious, like, is your issue that
It's 8
You
seats
just-
outside.
you just want the 8 seats and you can make them fit along the east side of the building?
No, I don't really think that there's room unless the salon's gonna let me put tables and chairs in front of theirs. I guess I'm a little confused about it because the restaurant's only open at night. You're talking the space between trees on a sidewalk that nobody uses between 5 and 10. I think Bob can attest to that in the 10 years he was there. That's not like a common hangout area. The only real good use of that, and it generates tax revenue for the whole entire town too. So it's a win-win for everybody. But I mean, 8 seats outside, you're talking the whole thing only had, I think, 22 with those, maybe 24. That's a third of my outdoor seating. So I mean, it's a much bigger deal. It's my whole summer right there. I just want everybody to understand it's a much bigger deal than just a couple of seats on a Friday and Saturday. It's the difference between having a successful place and not. You know, it's the difference between $24 for a glass of wine and 18. It's that big of a deal. 8 seats outside is everything for that place. It's huge. And that's not just me. You ask anybody who owns a restaurant now, 2 seats outside could be worth 60 grand a year. I mean, you're talking big money for 2 seats. It's huge.
But what we're saying is we're not taking those seats necessarily away from you. We're just asking that it be configured on one side. I mean, could it be worth it trying to come up with a plan like that?
I believe I've configured out what's in my area to the best of that usage. I don't think I can squeeze 8 more seats in it and still, have people comfortably spaced out from each other. Again, if there was some kind of issue with people bringing food across the sidewalk that I don't know about, I apologize. I can only speak from my own experience. It was great for my restaurant and I had no issues with that. So it's just, I'm a little blindsided and I'm disappointed and I'm just curious, is there going to be another meeting about this? Is this going to be every restaurant? Is this going to happen to? Should I start working on this now?
Can I give my suggestion?
Sure.
This is just my personal opinion. Okay, it's not anything official. I think that, I don't know what the administrator or department heads or even my colleagues on the council think about the outside dining going forward. Yeah, I'm talking like not just your space, but mostly the State Street stuff where it's taking up parking spaces, which is always at a premium in downtown Bristol. I think that was really successful. I think that is one of the things that probably comes out of COVID on the positive side, that people want to keep it that way. I would say that the businesses, if they're interested in that, this is just on an advocacy point of view, get together and then petition the council, the administrator, to discuss that, because that was all an executive order because of the pandemic. So people, not everybody was out and shopping this summer. I think they were, if we're doing that, we're giving up parking spaces and other things. I know that's not your issue for Roberto.
No,
I'm just saying in general.
we're all on the same team though.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So I do think it was very popular. I think it was a good idea. And I think that we should, but I think from a council person's point of view, we would have to see people come forward and say, can you guys do this again? Because it was great. And then, even negotiate something with the administrator, like the times or, how many months or something like that.
Sure.
Because I personally think it was a good thing. And I think over here was just when that issue came up, I imagine if you're a person who does a lot of walking and taking your dogs through, you try not to have the dogs going over to people, you can't push over to one side because you've got to walk kind of straight down the middle in your particular Roberto's area. Like I said, I thought it looked really pretty when you went through there, but people have concerns. I just think from the bigger picture that you're raising, I think that we would probably need to have a petition presented to us, because I think it would be a good idea myself. But not everybody may agree with that.
I know it's 8 seats for Roberto's. I don't know if you add up every seat for every restaurant that's going to lose this, what it's going to mean, but I would imagine it'd be substantial. And from what I've heard on the news, we're not out of this pandemic yet. So I don't know if we did this for the pandemic and we're still in a pandemic, I don't feel like we should be taking this away now. But, and I guess that's, so I don't really know how to end this.
So a couple of points. One is that this council, and to Mary's point about talking about petitioning such and so forth about using public land, it certainly comes back to this council. This council would say yes or no. The executive order that came through the administrator was supported fully by this council, and it was appropriate at the time. If the world we're in a strange time again. It's amazing that we're in a strange time again after all of this time. But if we go back to difficult as they were times before, this council will not sit on its backside and just say, well, that's the way it is. That's the way we did it. We're going to look at this along with the administrator and make adjustments as appropriate. In regards to these decisions were made when you could not sit inside. That's not the case anymore. It's not. 2 is that it's public land. It belongs to everyone. And that's why there's a sidewalk use permit on them. 3, everyone here that was on the council at that time fully supported, and Tim actually brought it up earlier. I recall Bob and Paul from Leo's coming in front of us and having that full discussion that long ago. And the amount of effort that this council and the town put into making sure we were doing this appropriately, whether it's space on the sidewalk and having ADA accessibility. That was another discussion that we had in regards to the executive order. We took away handicap parking while that happened. Everything has a balance. Your business is important. We've all said that, but public access is also a balance. So we're not taking away your sidewalk. In fact, on this, we want to work with you to figure out how we make it work. So it isn't the tunnel effect. I I forgot what other terms were used here. So it's not about yes and no. It's about how can we make it work that is beneficial to both you, your business, and also the people that don't come and say anything, but feel uncomfortable when they walk through there. It's public land.
Yeah.
It's everybody's right to be able to do that. And you don't have to explain it. You don't have to ask to sit on the front stair if that's what you want to do. It's there for everyone to do. Your point's not missed on all of us. We get it. But these things were additional at COVID time and not a guarantee. It never was.
Oh,
So,
I know.
and in regards to the seating, I know for myself, and I think for my colleagues, I'd be happy, as we've already said, to consider additional space on that one side. That sidewalk is quite large, and I think we could find a way that is both beneficial for outdoor seating and also making sure that the public has the access that it should. So if my colleagues are amenable, I love the idea that Mary had earlier. If we can refer this to the administrator and his department heads.
Yeah.
To allow them to work on our behalf and come up with a solution to add additional seating over there. Is everyone okay with that?
I'm
I
absolutely
don't
fine with
personally
that,
think
yeah.
we need, I know I said it earlier. I don't think I need or we need to put a limit on it. If everybody's okay with the trust of the administrator and his departments. Now, I don't also think it's fair. I mean, if we hit a wall with it, then it comes back in front of us because it's not fair for us to give this difficult issue to you, sir, so you get to deal with it. That's in front of us and we're happy to deal with it. But let's see what happens first. If you can get to a good end with the administrator and his staff, I'm absolutely comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Because even you mentioned your neighbor, like the nail salon. I mean, if they close at 5, you might be able to put like a table or two right near there.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I've never seen a table like a block away from the restaurant, it's usually in front.
Oh, I don't want to be, no, I don't.
But
I wouldn't
you're
say-
right. I mean, if they would,
Maybe right at the edge.
you get what I'm saying though. To me, I just think it's great use for the space and we're not getting anything out of it. It's just sitting there. I think you guys were actually getting revenue out of that space and now we're not.
Right.
So, I mean, it was a win-win for everybody. I guess that's just the way I see it. I'm not trying to argue with anybody. I appreciate all the work you guys do. I know you don't come to these decisions like easily. I will say though, we don't need a pandemic to do right by business owners too. I mean, this was great for the whole town. You drive into Bristol town, you see the outdoor seating and all the tables. It was awesome, to tell you the truth. And, it didn't have to it shouldn't have taken a pandemic for us to see that, I think. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. We don't have to do more for the place just because of the pandemic. We could actually keep this awesome thing that we have going. That's all.
I think in all of our businesses, to that point, just one last quick thing. I mean, we've all learned things that we could do. We
Absolutely.
were forced to do certain things and we had to figure out how to do it. And we go like, hey, that worked pretty well, whether it's online meetings, whether it's, in your business, the outdoor seating and taking some of the town property to do that and generate more revenue and a buzz on, like in the downtown area in the evenings. I mean, I think we've all learned things that you want to keep as a result of what we were sort of had to figure out on the fly a little bit, because of the situation.
And-
That's all. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, Richard, I think, this administration and the town council, we're definitely here to support you and we definitely want you to succeed. So we definitely are open to different design. We just want to have a balance for the public, Oyster Bar patrons, any walkers going by. So
Totally.
I am definitely going to go ahead and make a motion to approve the sidewalk use license. And that includes all the tables on the east side. And then I'll also add to the motion, if my colleagues are amenable to it, we refer this to the administrator to work with the owner on the west side tables. And if there is a design and that could work, then we would go ahead and we would try that.
So you're saying that everything's staying on the east side, but add additional tables to it? Is that what I heard you say?
We would prove everything on the east side. I think we're all in agreement that that is fine. I think there is a question on the west side and making sure there's a balance there. In that motion, if we can refer that to Steve and the administration to kind of come up with a work with Richard to come up with the best design possible to make sure that that's accommodating a balance. Help me out here, but I'm trying to get to a motion that balances it out.
All the tables on the east side
Try to
with,
get all the tables on the east side, and if
Yes.
not, they can try to say, well, we could do it with this way, but we need 2 right over here. No other, I mean,
Yep.
It would have to do a couple of designs and configurations, I would think.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
So, second.
Second.
Okay,
Thank you.
discussion?
Or whoever second.
Mr. Administrator, did you want to add anything since we've?
No, I think I made our concerns pretty clear. So
Okay.
Well, I'm a little concerned with the motion, because are we laying things now on the administrator to say, okay, not only we're going to go on the east side, but now we're considering west side options. I'm a little concerned with that because obviously I think he's already made that very clear with also in support with I believe one of the other department heads. So that being said, I don't think it's fair to say, well, you work that out. It's either we do on the east side
agree.
and I go with that, but not entertain the west side at this point.
Mhm.
Was that your motion to?
My motion was to go ahead and approve everything on the east side, but I was leaving the design open based
For
on
additional tables.
based on our discussions that
Okay.
there was possibility that there could be another design that best worked for the public and it best worked for Roberta's. So I'm just trying to come to a balance without having to make such a definitive decision, to kind of leave it open and let the administrator work it out. If he wants to bring it back to us for a final decision, then that's fine too, if he wants us to make that decision.
For myself, it would be on the east side solely, and I'm open to the amount of tables that go there. It doesn't need to come back to me if it stays on the east side. And I'm okay with whatever amount of tables, as long as we hit all the parameters of our ordinance, which is clear sidewalk. I forgot what the distance is that we say, but
Mhm.
the width, excuse me. So as long as we hit the parameters of our ordinance, that is appropriate to me. So anyone else? Mr. Administrator?
we will certainly take a look at it. Maybe there's something we're not seeing. And we'll walk the area and we'll work with Mr. Carenti and maybe we can come up with something, but I just can't make any promises right now.
I
No,
understand.
I understand.
I just appreciate the chance. That's all. Thank you.
And it's understood if you have to come back, you come up with, okay, this is not something down your aisle. Do you feel that it needs to come back by all means? Thank you. And I think Roberta was.
Bob?
If you don't mind, I just want to point a couple things out regarding those tables in between the tree belts. As you probably all know, Roberto's paid to have those landscape timbers put inside those boxes to define the flower areas. We also planted all the flowers in them every spring and cleaned them up every fall. The purpose of that was to define the area. Now, if you read the ADA's rules, I believe they require 6.5 feet for 2 wheelchairs to cross in opposite directions. We have between the dining on the east side and those boxes, approximately 7 feet. We're one of the few restaurants in town that have that much sidewalk space. We have a total of 14 feet from the building to the retaining wall. Those tables, there were 4 two-top tables, little round tables that sit in between those boxes. They don't protrude into the sidewalk area at all. So the only issue, as Steve pointed out, is perhaps a waitress or a waiter crossing the sidewalk to deliver food to the tables. There is no other obstruction. We're well within the ADA regulations by over a foot. So, and the compliance officer came down and measured all that and agreed that we were well within compliance. Now, I know that there's a lot of restaurants, particularly on State Street, that were not in compliance, but you allowed it, and that's a good thing that what you did. But if you're not going to allow that because they're not in compliance, that's fine. But please don't disallow this because of compliance. We are within compliance. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Questions?
No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Okay, so we had a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is C1. This is ordinance number 2021-21, chapter 16 to motor vehicles and traffic. And this is for the restricted parking on school days, second reading for adoption.
Motion to approve, second reading for adoption.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is C2. This is ordinance 2021-23, also for chapter 16 motor vehicles and traffic. And this is for parking prohibited at all times on, I believe it's Shores Road and Rock Street. And it's second reading for adoption.
Motion to approve the second reading for adoption.
Second.
There's a motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve. Any discussion? I do real quick is just like the last one, this is an effort made by the town to clean up ordinances and have ordinances reflect current state. So in this particular instance, parking was happening on the other side of the street, even though the ordinance said that wasn't acceptable. You've heard us considering multiple ordinances that we've approved to do just that, to clean up ordinances to make sure that no parking boxes have an ordinance behind them. Handicap parking is correctly labeled, those kind of things. And this is just another effort to do that.
Yeah, really nice. It's great.
So we had a
Optimized.
motion, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I think it's great. I think it optimizes parking and gets everything in line.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is E1. And this is the junk and secondhand license renewals for 2021 through 2022.
Motion to approve the junk and secondhand license renewals for 2021, 2022 as stated.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is F1, and this is Benjamin Church Home for Aged Men at 1220 Hope Street, and this is a request to extend the real estate tax exemption.
So, Mr. Solicitor, I'm going to ask if you could just kind of take 30 seconds to speak to what's exactly in front of this council.
Sure. In essence, what they're asking is for the town to enter into what we known as a pilot agreement with them. Pilot stands for payment in lieu of taxes. As you're aware, this property has never paid taxes because of the town affiliation. Now that it's unaffiliated, they want to continue with their mission and continue to not have to pay taxes. So under the law, you are able to enter into, like, say, an agreement where X dollars a year are paid instead of paying taxes. But what we need to do in order to accomplish that is to add the town of Bristol to a list of other towns that have enabling legislation that allow them to enter into such pilot agreements with nonprofits. So my recommendation would be, if you're interested in pursuing this along the lines being requested, is that for your January meeting, I'll have a resolution and legislation for you to consider, to send to the General Assembly, get that enabling legislation adopted, and that way you'd be able to then enter into an agreement. In the meantime, as of December 31st, the tax collector will have to do an assessment because there's no pilot in place. But the hope is by the time we even get to the first quarter, taxes that need to be paid, we'll have this tool for you to be able to utilize.
So, and give us a timeline on that. So let me say it like this, is that if this council decided it wanted to take that step, so January, we would have that resolution and proposed legislation that would go to our General Assembly.
Correct.
And then the General Assembly would consider it and it would go into place something like second quarter of next year.
That would be my guess, because it would be, because so many other towns already have this authority, it would be non-controversial. I think it would just go through the pro forma process.
And in regards to taxes, so right now, this property, there's no revenue loss if this council decides to go that direction because it doesn't currently have property tax assessed.
Neutral,
But-
revenue neutral. right.
Revenue neutral, nice way. So starting January, it would be assessed. How do we deal with that 6
Right.
months or whatever it happens to be?
So a couple of things. I'd like to work with Michelle on that, because once you put it in, then you would have to abate it theoretically.
Okay,
Another approach is to see if there's a way that we can work in grace periods so they don't actually have to write a check. But between now and your January meeting, we'll have a plan of action along those lines.
Okay. Mr. Kinder is here to speak on behalf of this petition, I believe.
Well, I just want to thank the council and the solicitor for working with us on this. We're happy to help you in any way. So we're all trying to get to the same place, I think, and sort of think creatively to do it. It sounds like having that power would be a good thing for you, because it is common throughout the state, as Mike said. So, we're happy to go up to the assembly for you, with you, whatever it may be. We're grateful to your help in whatever way you can give it. If we have to pay taxes for a little bit, we could do that. It ends up coming out of different pockets, and so it probably doesn't do anybody any good at the end of the day, but you do what you have to do. So
Fair enough. Counsel?
Mr. Solicitor, just a quick question for you. Would the enabling legislation be just specifically for the Benjamin Church
No,
Senior
it's
Center? or
broader than
It
that.
would be all nonprofits then?
It would, you wouldn't have to keep going back. In
Okay.
other words.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm a little unclear. If we do this for this particular property, and if another one comes along, we would have to go back to the General Assembly?
So the way the legislation's presently written, Tony, it is broad enough so that you would not have to keep going back. So there's a list of towns already in the legislation. All we're going to do is amend it and add Bristol.
Mhm.
And it gives the opportunities. Some towns have entered into 2 or 3 of these agreements. Some have only done 1 or 2. It'll just give you that flexibility. It's always up to the town council to make the decision, yes or no. And there are certainly groups that are worthy and other groups that are not so worthy, but you ultimately make that decision. It's only enabling legislation, only if you so desire. But without it, you don't have the power to do it at all, because the taxing power is controlled by the state. And when we want to deviate from it, we have to go through the state.
Okay.
So Mr. Solicitor, the pilot legislation or the pilot agreement that we have for like Roger Williams, then there's a specific
Yeah, that one's
enabling
different.
legislation for educational
Yes,
institutions.
and churches, so we don't need pilot agreements for religious or educational institutions.
Right.
This is outside of those categories.
So I think some key points here is that this is currently, or it was, owned by Bristol Housing Authority, which it was a non-tax status. So there was no, to speak coldly, there was no revenue generation on that, right? And the use of the building is unchanged and proposed unchanged.
Right.
The term of the pilot in our documentation was 5 years, and say it's $1 a year or something along that line. And that's what what would be proposed at our next meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct. And even the term of years is up to it could be
Sure.
1 year, 5 years. It's up to you.
Okay.
Yeah. I just had a question in regards to the term. So we can adjust the term. if
You
it
can
needs to be.
adjust the term. You can use language such that as long as it is owned by and or used in such and such a manner. So you'll have lots of flexibility. The actual pilot agreement itself, once we have that enabling legislation, we can be very creative with the agreement language.
We can't get there until that legislation
We
is
cannot.
amended then.
That's right.
Okay.
I mean, we could draft something in anticipation of, but we can't sign it.
Just very briefly, whoever compiled the packet is very much appreciated. It was very educational to go back, and it was very historical. So thank you.
Any other discussion from the council? So Mike, help us with the correct motion.
I think what you would do is simply continue the matter to your January meeting, and my office will prepare the legislation and the resolution for you.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Thank
Ms.
you all.
Kinder?
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is F2, and this is Edward Carrero, the Carnival Chairman for the 4th of July Committee, and this is a request to use the town common for the carnival on June 20th through July 5th, I wrote 2021, sorry, it should be 2022 carnival.
Make a motion to approve it, but make sure that all the stipulations are followed.
Good point. I'll second the motion.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim to approve, following those recommendations and stipulations. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the public service appointments. The first one on the agenda is the Bristol Housing Authority. And this is for the term to expire in January 2027. And we have John E. Faria, 1039 Hope Street, with interest in reappointment. And we also have a recommendation from the Executive Director of the Housing Authority for appointment of John Faria.
I make a motion that we reappoint Mr. Faria to the position.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Mary to appoint. Is there any other discussion?
Thank you, John, for your 30 years of service.
Just 30?
Yeah,
That's
30
impressive.
years.
And counting.
Well put. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Chairman and members of the council, next item on the agenda is G3, and this is the Conservation Commission. We have 2 terms to expire December 2024. We have Jay Maciel from 18 Phillip Avenue with interest in reappointment, and Leanne Freitas from 134 Bayview Avenue, also with interest in reappointment.
Motion to reappoint both applicants.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to reappoint both applicants. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is G4. This is the Juvenile Hearing Board. This is 2 terms to expire December 2024. We have Linda Lou Du Bois, and we also have Wayne Marshall, both with interest in reappointment.
Make a motion to reappoint both candidates.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is G5, and this is for the Personnel Board. This is term to expire December 2026, and we have Matthew Cabral with interest in reappointment.
So question on this one. It says it expires in 2026. It's a 6-year appointment. I believe you. I didn't know we,
It's a. That's what I did here. Hang on one second. I'm sorry. They have 5-year terms. So it would be 2020. Bristol Housing, sorry.
2026 does make sense then, right?
Yes.
When does it expire? I guess I should have looked at
Sorry,
that
they're
first.
4-year terms. 5 members,
Okay.
4-year terms.
Ah,
So it would
so it would
be,
be
you are
5,
correct.
yeah.
So it would be 25, not 26.
25, yeah.
all right. Thank you.
Could be a little confusing. You look at the 5 members, but then you see 4-year appointments. So I understood. I make a motion, we reappoint Matthew Cabral to the position.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to reappoint Matthew Cabral. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the Board of Tenant Affairs. This is 2 terms to expire in January 2024. And we have Linda Haru for the tenant position with interest in reappointment. And we also have Richard Hunter with interest in reappointment.
Motion to reappoint both applicants.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to reappoint both applicants. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is G7, and this is the Board of Tax Assessment Review. We have 2 terms to expire December 2024. One is for a full member and one is for a vacant Republic alternate position. We have 1 recommendation from the Chair of the Democratic Town Committee for Robert Farris for reappointment.
Based on the recommendation of the chair, I move to approve the appointment of Robert Farris.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Mary to reappoint. I think it is. right?
Reappoint.
Yes,
Reappoint, yes.
Yep.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is G8, and this is Rogers Free Library Board of Trustee, and this is with a term to expire January 2028. And we have Ingracia Rodriguez with a resignation, and we have Samantha Faria with interest in appointment, and we also have a recommendation from the chair, Jackie Katz, for appointment of Samantha Faria.
I make a motion to appoint Samantha.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim to appoint. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Certainly.
No reflection on Samantha, but I just have a question. Were there any other candidates that are applied for this position? There were? Okay, thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Before we move forward, we just went through a whole bunch of people, and I'll point out John again, 30 years sitting on a board, and I know he was involved in other things, just like probably all the other applicants. This council in this town says thank you. I'll give an example is Board of Tax Assessment. Makes the news often, doesn't it? Not at all, right? But these fine men and women take time out of their day to make Bristol a better place with very little thanks. But a lot of thanks from this council and this administrator and this town. So thank you. Well said.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item of business is H1. This is Fire Chief DeMello had an update for the ARP broadband fiber project. He is requesting to continue the matter to a later date so we can prepare more information for the council.
Do you know if we had a proposed date? Are we looking at February? Or?
He was hoping for January, but he couldn't promise for January. So we just said for a date.
Is this council comfortable with maybe moving it to our, and actually, Chris, maybe you could speak to it, maybe our February date?
Certainly, we're actually just waiting for one final number. We've been trying to just get all of our ducks in a row to present the information to the council. My hope is we're going to hear within the next week, but just because it is the holiday week, we're giving a little bit of extra time. So with that, we should be ready by the 19th, but if the council would prefer to.
No,
continue
if
to
you're
February.
comfortable with it, I'm sure we are too. So everybody okay with the 19th? Is there a motion to that effect?
So move.
Second?
A motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim to continue to our January 19th meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is I1, and this is a public notice for CRMC, Coastal Resource Management Council, in regards to John and Diane McInnes of 34 Viking, and this is requires response before tomorrow, December 23rd. We received it late.
Motion. This is a motion to receive and file?
Without objection, right? You don't have to add the last part.
Yeah. Just very quickly on that.
So we had a motion. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll
Okay,
second that
discussion.
with some discussion. Yes, I just wanted to know if the Harbor Commission had the opportunity to review this.
We did not have the opportunity to get a recommendation from the Harbor Commission.
Okay.
I'm glad that you have that on the record, though. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item of business is I2, and this Community Development Director Diane Williamson in regards to the concept landscaping and stormwater improvements master plan for the Bristol Town Common.
Hello, Diane.
Good evening.
So Ed Tanner is here tonight, along with our consultant Arnold Robinson, and they have a very brief presentation to update you on this project that we did for the Town Common Stormwater Master Plan.
We really need to use our TVs on this. With these, really, just get them up there. And I'm giving you a hard time, not you, us a hard time, so we can, so the public can see it out there and we can see it a little bit clearer. So
We'll work on that for the next one.
I
think
love
it's,
that.
you know, it's sometimes what is it? It's hard to change an old dog.
New habits take a long time.
Right, there you
Yeah, They do. They do. I can't see it.
Good evening.
I'm just.
I believe there was a copy of the plan in your
There-
packets.
there you
need to-
Hopefully it's clear, and it will be posted to the town's website as well,
Thank you.
along with the entire report, which is pretty great reading, by the way, that Arnold will get into. Good evening. Thank you for hearing us this evening. I just wanted to do a brief introduction and then I'll turn it over to Arnold. This project was a conceptual stormwater and landscape master plan for the Bristol Town Common. We're pretty excited about it because the Town Common has been an area that has been, you know, on a lot of people's radar for many years. It's a beautiful historic cultural resource, but it's got some issues from a landscape point of view, from a stormwater point of view.
And so we've actually applied for other grants in the past. We've tried to do a few things out there. You know, if you've ever walked on the common after a heavy rain or during a heavy rain, as I have, a lot of puddling, a lot of runoff heading down some of those walkways towards Church Street. You can see the gullies and the erosion along the slope, especially over near the playground. So we thought this was a great opportunity. So the Southeast New England program called the SNP network. It's funded through the EPA grants. They put out a call for RFPs for technical assistance grants, and Diane and I applied with Steve with Steve's blessing, and we went through sort of what the problems were out there, and we were selected for a technical assistance grant. So, and that's why we have Arnold. So I just want to just really briefly. Not only does the site have issues with erosion and runoff and puddling, but all of that water and all of that mulch and all of everything that's put down on the common that washes away with it goes right into our storm drains and mostly in Church Street, but also in Wood Street and High Street. And that is all piped directly into the harbor. So you may not think of the town common as contributing, but all the runoff from the urban landscape contributes to water problems in water quality issues in the harbor. So that's at the heart of what we're trying to look at and to study, to see if we can maybe use the town common as an educational tool. Maybe we can come up with some creative solutions to improve the water quality and also show people what can be done in their own landscapes to help in this type of neighborhood. As I said, it was funded by the SNP network through EPA. Fuss and O'Neill was our engineering consultant. We had a team from the SNP network that came down. I just really briefly, we had representatives we have engineers, landscape architects, and scientists from URI, the University of New Hampshire Stormwater Center, and even RISD. RISD has a landscape architecture program, and they had some students who did some amazing public education pieces that are in the report. We met together with a stakeholder committee from the town, which included community development, parks and recreation, the Conservation Commission, and the Historic District Commission, and the Department of Public Works. So we wanted to look at the common, but to come up with solutions that made sense, that being sensitive to the culture and to making sure the DPW and everybody could actually get behind what we proposed. Overreaching goal of in really showing the public, here's a space where we could do some pretty good things and bring stormwater and water quality issues, being so surrounded by water here in Bristol, to the forefront. When you see the report and when you see some of the really great recommendations that Arnold's going to speak about briefly, I think you'll get a really good idea of the types of things we can do and could do. I just want to sort of say that their ideas, they're conceptual. Some of them may look fantastic on paper. Others you might say, what is that? Well, how's this really going to look? We're going to use this report. We're going to use all the great data and information that Arnold's through Fuss and O'Neill that they gathered with the committee, and we will use this. As Diane likes to say, plans don't sit on our shelf very long. We will apply for grant funding, and we will search for projects and sort of pick them off piecemeal as we have successfully done on other projects in Bristol. So I'd like to turn things over to Arnold Robinson, who I believe you all know. He was the project manager from Fuss and O'Neill on this project. Thanks.
I just wanted to add, this grant was, there were no matching funds for this grant.
The council is very appreciative of no matching. Outstanding stuff. We're easily impressed.
Cheap is good, free is better.
We'll take those anytime.
For the record, I'm Arnold Robinson, Fuss and O'Neill. So Ed gave you sort of the setup and the context. I want to go through sort of what led to the plan you have in front of you, and let you know where that came from. We had a great team, both from the town, from URI and SNP, and from Fuss and O'Neill. We had our landscape architect team, stormwater engineers, and I was on board for sort of planning and historical context. We did a very thorough existing conditions approach to this. We had an initial meeting with stakeholders to say, what are your top concerns from the town perspective and from a broader perspective, sort of Save the Bay and Stormwater. And folks identified those issues that you see on the plan. The discussion about where does runoff go from the parking lots behind Byfield School on the north side by State Street. The extreme amount of erosion that happens from the water coming off the tennis pickleball courts that sort of just runs down those pathways and then runs out into that corner of Wood Street and Church Street that acts like a giant sluice heading to the southeast. But one of the biggest concerns, and Parks and Rec really brought this up, was how incredibly muddy and marshy the area around the playground gets. With the slightest amount of rain, that sort of acts as a retention sponge, and everything just sits in that area. So I think those were the big concerns that were brought up. We came back with our design team and we came up with a concept plan for those 5 elements. But one of the things we had to do, and I think it's important, Ed talked about the amount of stormwater that makes it into Bristol Harbor. And I think you guys all care deeply about Bristol Harbor. Some of the numbers were interesting. We did a full, what we call pre-development analysis and then a post-development analysis. And a standard rainstorm, which we have about 30 of per year in New England, has about 30,000 gallons of untreated water going into off that site, not absorbed in the site, getting into the storm drains and going to Bristol Harbor. That's very frequent. But the 1-year storm and the 10-year storm, the 1-year storm, which we had 4 of last year, by the way, generates 185,000 gallons of untreated stormwater that goes into Bristol Harbor.
Arnold, take
yeah.
1 second.
Sure.
Take 1 second, just explain to everyone. You
Sure.
said a 1-year storm.
So a 1-year storm is a probability over historical averages for the past 50 years of how frequently we see a certain amount of rainfall and how frequently that happens. It was true up until about 10 years ago that we could say that the 10-year storm was truly a 10-year storm. We're seeing those rain amounts more frequently, but we still have to use those as the DEM mandated measuring sticks.
Thank
So
you.
just to give you a sense, thank you for asking. And the 10-year storm, which we had 2 of last year, it generates over 500,000 gallons of untreated stormwater that goes into Bristol Harbor. So I think those numbers are meaningful in the sense that interventions that the town undertakes has a measurable impact on water quality in Bristol Harbor. So that's an important point. So having said that, we used best practices for stormwater interventions. But I want to say that one of the things, because this is such an important historical and town center environment, was we were guided by that aesthetically. So rather than where you might see sort of high structured stormwater things with lots of high plantings, our mantra was stay low on Bristol Common and have as little impact on those usable spaces the town staff and stakeholders told us were important: the carnival area, the playground area, the walkways and connectivities. So that's all reflected in the plan that you see there. So there are 5 big sort of interventions that are woven into the landscape. The first is the parking lot is building a bioretention system on the north side of the parking lot at State Street, on the State Street edge. And Steve was really adamant that we not lose any parking spaces. So that was a key part of that design. The second is putting in what we call a stone diaphragm on the little slope that comes down off the pickleball court. Right now, the water just runs down that grass slope right to the walkway. There'd be an infiltration system built in that's about 8 feet wide, just downslope from that. And that as you go around the playground and basketball court, and that's one of the most important ones along that south edge, there is a bioretention system, which essentially would be mostly subgrade, that would sort of wrap that area and convey the moisture off the playground to keep that high and dry while giving the water a place to go where it just doesn't run into Church Street. Right, it has a place to be there. And then Byfield School, some work on the sort of playground area. Again, trying not to cut into the usable parking space there, but trying to cut down on the pavement area and enhance the walking space as you walk through it. And last, a full tree maintenance and replanting plan. One of the things that Parks really talked about was, where do we put new trees when someone donates one? What species should they be? When our certain trees reach a certain age, when do we remove them? And we had a lot of discussion session with the committee and great support from the Conservation Commission on that set of recommendations. Tony was terrific. So I think those are the big ones. I just want to note that with these interventions in place, we see a 92%, well, we see 100% reduction for the sort of annual yearly, those 30 annual rainfall events, which are just your standard rainstorm. None of that water makes it out into the street now. So we stopped all that. For even a 1-year storm, which was that 185,000 gallons making it out, we stopped 92% of that volume from making it to your stormwater system with these interventions. And even a 10-year storm, which was that over 500,000 gallons, we stopped 78% of that from making it into the storm drain system. So these are fairly low impact. They're visually very low. They don't impact your flow areas where people are moving between spaces. So we think it's a nice balance between those things. The other things you've gotten in this plan, just to wrap up, there are full guidelines for future tree planting and tree succession planning. Should the town get to a point where it wants to replace the playground, we've included some details on that for how to make that a higher and drier structure, and some things you might do to make that work better. Art installations, if in the future you decide to have either temporary or permanent art installations, where are there opportunities for those to go into place where they're not going to block your flow, but they're going to be visual and enhance the space. And guidelines for future site furnishings. If you're replacing your benches or your trash materials, how do you mesh that with the rest of the town's standards that you currently use? And there's full cost estimates for each of these that are also in place, as well as informational signage that you can install. The RISD students did a great job with the educational signage that you could install next to one of these installations. So people not only get the benefit as a resident, but they walk by and say, oh, that's what they're doing and how they're stopping stormwater from making it into the bay. So it sends a message, a broader message. So I think that covers most of the work for the project and the recommendations. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, that's a whole bunch. What this, I know that we can see this. There's some great ideas here for parking for snowstorms. Currently, it's kind of a mixed bag of where you can get on, and this is much clearer guidelines to do that, with some ideas on making sure that once the carnival's gone and once that snow parking is gone, that the grass is still grass and not squished down and killed, right? For myself, I love the low visibility end of it. We don't have to pretend we're dealing with water, but we also don't want to ruin the beautiful sight lines that is the town common. That's one of the things that makes it magical, having the bandstand, that thing that you look at, and having your eye off of that would be disappointing. I love the idea of dealing with the trees there. There's more than a few that are not healthy anymore, but we hold on to them until we have a good plan. And apparently now we have a great plan. Ed, you had mentioned, and Arnold, maybe you can answer this, about multiple, kind of we're looking at this multi-phased, as in maybe there's 2 grants or 20 grants out there. I mean, what's our thoughts on, and where would we start and where do we see potential grants out there?
So I'll answer a little bit based on our phasing priorities, but I think you should be also driven by opportunities for grant funding of where they come. From an intervention standpoint of having the most impact early, the area around the playground and the southern edge is where you can have the most bang for the buck. That's where you can enhance usability, but also stop a huge amount of your water migration onto Church Street. And then the second most is the parking lot up on the north edge. But having said that, there may be some grants that are available in the very short term for dealing with parking lots. I'm going to talk about 319.
Yes. Real quick, we've been very successful with what's called a 319 grant. 319 is a section of the Clean Water Act. It's administered through DEM. They paid a fair amount of money for the Town Beach project, for Gutierrez School. They're going to be working on the police station. And they also helped us with some of the work at the golf course. So we've already reached out to them. They have a grant round opening up later in the winter. So we'll talk to the administrator and see how the numbers work with Julie, and maybe we can get that north parking lot, the design work, and the final design and exactly what it would look like would come at that point. You would hire a firm like Arnold's or to do the final design work under the grant.
No, I know, Ed, this goes back to the days that I sit around here, and I know this has been your baby, the town common. It really has. And it's nice to see this develop again. You know, I know you've chased on quite a few grants and a couple of them didn't come through. However, they are now, and it certainly will be great to see. I mean, I love the plan. I think it addresses many of the issues, and you're right about Church Street. You know, I walk every morning and when it rains, you can see it. It just washes right through. You see those guys coming back to the playground, or our employees, I should say, not those guys, our employees from the recreation department come back with rakes constantly to redo the playground. So it's understood, and it's certainly it's time. I just have a quick question on the Wood Street side. I see cement was poured there, a partial sidewalk. Was there something of sorts there?
So where the pickleball going into the pickleball area,
Is that?
there was it,
Yeah.
maybe a water line possibly? Oh, hi,
No,
Chris.
it is
Would like
a
to
cement.
respond.
It's like a little pad of cement. Am I correct?
Doesn't go to a gate, does it?
Chris.
Yes, so actually, that's not part of their project.
Right, I
That
know.
was part
but
of.
I just thought I would jump into that one very quickly since we're talking about the common.
Yeah, so very quick. As you know, Tim Shaw and the Recs Department have been working on improving the courts over there. One of their improvements is putting in a new gate. And so as part of those improvements, we were able to work with some of the contractors here doing work around town
Right.
and put in that new walkway so that we improve accessibility to the court.
Okay, thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
didn't mean to derail the conversation, but it was just curious. I mean, it's actually part of the improvements. So appreciate, thank you. And thank you for all your efforts there.
You're welcome. And just to clarify, the report is the plan is actually a pretty lengthy report. It will be on the community development page. We have a list of projects and the town common is there. I will add this report so that anybody who is interested can review it.
Thank
Oh, I'm sorry. So when you do get that up there, could you just email us so we know to look for it? Okay, that'd be
Absolutely.
great.
I didn't want to put it up before we came and talked about it.
Oh, you did?
I
No,
didn't
you did
want
not.
to
Oh,
put it up
okay,
until
okay,
we.
yeah, no. Okay, so two things. One is comment that just triggered my memory here or my mind when Tony was speaking, just to add to it, and maybe this would help it, but the north side, that State Street side in the winter is incredibly dangerously icy because it doesn't really get a lot of sun, particularly down around the Wally School area.
Yep.
And so imagine that runoff's coming from the, well, I'm not really sure where it's coming from, if it's from the common, if there's just like, you know, the gutters and the building, but it is a very, very dangerous area. And, you know, it just stays icy for a long period of time. Actually, all the State Street does on that, on the south side of the north, side, you know, the State Street side.
Sure.
And so I wanted to mention that. The other is, given the conversation that's going on in relation to the reuse of Wally School, is there, I was looking at this one day, you know, trying to figure this out, if there's a way to just take another foot or so. I'm not trying to promote more parking on the common, but just to take like another foot or so, or a little bit of space to add additional parking in the State Street side. You know, so maybe make it like slightly deeper, and that way there and angle in a certain way so you maybe can add more cars. Because right now it's just the one, and I see here they're like angled, but in real life, people don't do that, but maybe they would
Right.
be. And then it is along the edge. What you now have is shrubbery here. I mean, that's really where people park. That's what there's space for.
Yep.
And I know that the Oliver School won't be being used, but you know, it's a busy lot during the churches and so forth. But especially, I think that the tentative plans we saw, and it's coming back next month, but for the Wally School, you know, orients the entrance orients towards that parking area and to the common. So, and also that bit of parking that people use behind Wally School.
Right.
And so that leads me to the question. That's one thought. I just was wondering if you looked at that, or if you could look at that, given that discussion. And the other is the impervious surfaces for the parking lot. Is that part of your plan as well? I mean, because the surface is behind Byfield, behind Wally, and on this blacktop that we have on State Street. I mean, I think it was kind of put there. It stayed there. It's kind of just blacktop that just got sort of laid down, and it's kind of been there for, I don't know,
Right.
20, 30, 40 years. I mean, no, not 20. I mean,
Right.
30, 40 years. So What are your thoughts about all of that? Is that part of the plan or?
Yes, I have a few thoughts and I'll try. We looked at all of those areas. The area behind Wally School has some pavement, that little parking area. Was very clear. It holds water for a long period of time. It doesn't drain very well. There's sort of a low area where it sits in there. And that's something that the engineers looked at. And also, you're correct, the State Street parking lot, and maybe Arnold can elaborate, but the engineers from Fuss and O'Neill measured that out, and we feel that with the stormwater improvements, we could probably get a little bit more parking in there using the same space. And to answer your follow-up question, all that impervious area for the parking lot would be treated in our plan, whereas right now there's no water treatment. All of that pavement runs off if it either pitches towards the road, which eventually gets into storm drains, or contributes to that runoff that's flowing across the common. So we did look at all of those areas.
But Ed, is there any way to eke out, like, without adding too much surface, to eke out another few parking spaces, like even behind the Wally School, for example, or just by cleaning up that area, making it more defined, taking a little bit here or there, but Byfield is the same way.
We certainly looked at Byfield and the plan, and it'll go, the plan goes into a bit more detail behind Byfield, because that can sort of, I'll let Arnold wrap around, but it sort of connects to the whole playground area.
And the other thing that I just don't understand, because it may be just that it's small.
Yep.
The is it additional parking that you have behind the parking? I don't understand that, like
It's the winter parking. So if there's a snowstorm, that it's just set up so cars can go there temporarily while there's a parking ban.
I mean, that's usually, I know people park all over the place. I know they park on High Street side, but it's usually not a huge problem, only because it's usually frozen in the ground at that point, so it doesn't really ruin it too much. So that you would have a way for them to come on and they would park, there'd be more space there.
Yeah, and actually that's tied right into sort of what paving do you leave at Byfield and what don't you leave, and that, sort of as an ingress egress point works really well to get to a westerly parking zone of sort of reinforced turf, and can work really well. But to your point, you should absolutely, when you get to your next level of design, reconfigure your parking along the State Street sides to match the land uses. When we were doing this study last year, while it wasn't quite as advanced as a project on the way that that's all going to work. And the good news about doing a concept plan and getting you in the ballpark for funding is that you can update your plan to reflect the new uses that you want to have. The other key is you can expand your impervious space along State Street to eke out a few more spots, because now you're treating that water. The thing we never want to do is just increase our paving area and just increase the flow. Now you've got a huge area where you can really enhance both the streetscape of State Street and have a great treatment zone along that edge.
Yeah, it could be a little bit more surface, which we don't want. I'm not a proponent at all of tons of parking on the common. So let's just say that, but you could add some surface in parking spaces and make it look better than it does just by greening it up a little bit,
Yep.
So.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question. Arnold, thanks for being here today, by the way. Ed, the work you guys are doing is amazing out here. I hear about it throughout the state of Rhode Island. Everybody's talking about Bristol. Can you just talk a little bit about the level of maintenance on a plan like this? Is this the type of plan where it'd be less maintenance than it typically ordinarily was, or is it going to be more later on?
It's a different form of maintenance. And, one of the things that we that was a good discussion we had with Sarah from Parks and with Tim from Parks, in that balancing act of who are you contracting with for your labor, who for the town is doing the labor. So what we tried to spec was fairly low tech, we call BMPs, best management practices for stormwater, that require minimal maintenance. And so once you've got a planting in a berm that is, or a rain garden that's going to catch that water, you want plants that are going to themselves fight off the weeds, that are not going to require frequent mowing or maintenance once they're established. Now, having said that, they do require a once-a-year cleanup to keep them functioning well. I've seen communities go in and unfortunately cut out all the useful vegetation in those and make them non-functioning. So it's a different kind of maintenance. It's going to cut down on the amount of lawn you're doing every week, but it's going to increase that seasonal maintenance in the spring when you're gearing your systems up.
And I guess one of the last, no, I'll hold off a little bit on that. The last question I had for you was on that particular site, what are the primary sources of water pollution on that site?
So we did a basic, sort of water quality scan. And Amy Johnson, who's on the Zoom call listening tonight, is the person that I would ask. Do we have the technology to ask Amy that question? No, we don't have. What we're primarily seeing
You
is.
can't put your map on the TV. How are we going to talk to Amy? No, it's not that bad.
I can get back to you guys with which I don't want to misquote the report. I know one of our biggest concerns, though, is animal wastes on the common site and going into that stormwater and going off. I think the town is responsible in its fertilizing methods. So hopefully we're not seeing too much of that moving off site, but one of our primary ones going off is, and then the other key is any parking lot that's untreated is going to have everything that's coming off those automobiles in terms of oil and gasoline and other fluids.
Thank you.
Why wouldn't you have, I mean, when I think about the animal waste, I mean, there's plenty of nice commons, parks that I've seen that have like receptacles.
Yep.
They have the bags, they have the receptacles right there. I mean, and that's not something that we have very much around in Bristol. And it's a little bit surprising because many communities do.
And they're a great match when you have garbage receptacles on site. If you have those bag dispensers, people will use them more frequently because they know they're not going to have to carry it back to their car. That's a park design issue that Stephanie White, our landscape architect, brought up. And so that could be a great thing to add as one of your installations, might be those dispensers if you're interested.
Jim?
Great. Arnold and Ed, great design, definitely in support. I live on Church Street, so I can speak from first person, just understanding how many the floods that happen over there. I mean, a lot of erosion going on. I was just curious, are you using any sort of flexible porous type?
We're not. So
asphalt, that
so,
type of thing, just
yeah.
to.
And we didn't spec it for those. You can use it for your parking areas, but it really requires a high degree of maintenance for your cleaning, that you have to maintain those in a northern, in a New England environment. Any sand, any sediment is going to get between those gaps, and you're going to have to vacuum those spaces out. I don't know if the town has other impervious pavement areas in your other developments, but it really requires usually a special vacuum truck. Your workers have to be trained to maintain that to really keep it functioning well, because if it does fill up, it acts like regular asphalt. And just and rolls right off.
Okay, and then there's a cistern. It looks like there's a Gallant Cistern. Could you just tell me a little bit about that? So a lot of the water kind of moves there, and then does it just sit, or what happens?
So any places where most of this is designed, because your soils on the common are not great, you're not going to get a ton of percolation through that. So most of these are designed as sort of shallow open rain gardens where you're going to have water staying for a brief period of time, but it's going to have time. You're going to amend the bottoms of those pits so you can get some percolation down to certain depths, where there's a high degree of point runoff coming from a certain space that requires a higher degree of storage. We may put a holding cistern that then dispenses out into those rain gardens.
Got it. And then I think Mary and the chairman touched on it, and I apologize, everybody, on that temporary parking layout. So it still remains grass, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and that was
correct,
yeah, it was not one of our top 5 recommendations, but it was such a point of discussion with town staff that we included it to sort of show those layouts. Typically, what we would do for institutions where we work, where there's parking on the grass, is we do reinforced turf, and so you lift up about a 6-inch depth of soil. You've got a layer of gravel underneath and a reinforcing that goes in, sometimes plastic. And then that gets full treatment with sand and soil, and then new grass is planted, and that's fully covered. You're not seeing the edges of the plastic, but it means that when in damp weather you run a vehicle over it, it's not sinking down like we see sometimes in the March snowstorms out there where folks park.
Okay, so it'd be like an AstroTurf, almost like a football? Or,
no, it's real grass.
Real grass,
but underneath that real grass is a plastic matrix that is meant to bear vehicle weight.
Interesting. All right.
Yep. And so you'll often see that, I can send you guys some pictures, but fire lanes, which go through grass, are often designed that way. So they still look like grass, they function like grass, but they can take vehicle weight on top of them.
Okay, great.
So that it's not one of our top 5 recommendations, but we had some great discussions about improving the way the common functions during snowstorms.
Excellent. And I know the carnival, it takes a big beating with the trucks, and it's really quite a mess after they leave, it just from the trucks and the people. So I just hope that temporary plastic and the grass would hold up under all that
Yeah,
use.
it's pretty well tested and it's been out there for about 30 years as a design material.
Okay, thank you.
But I don't, I live in the common too. I'm a little bit more blocked because of the buildings. But I don't see a ton of cars outside of the State Street parking lot. And I mean, I see them on the High Street side, but it's usually one row, just that people kind of go up over the curb and go on to like between the courthouse and the church. I don't see like all these spaces that you potentially have. Like, I didn't know that there was that big of a need that people can't get, is it that people can't get into parking? They don't have places to park because people park, I believe, in back of Mount Carmel as well, don't they?
I might punt to Ed and Diane because this came up in the design discussions with town staff.
Real quick, that was just a visual, but it was brought to our attention during the committee meetings. Sarah Klein mentioned, and we've seen it where in the winter, you just see cars sort of willy-nilly. They drive in from whatever direction they can. They're parked over near the basketball court. They're sort of, and then they're digging themselves out after the snow and the tires are spinning because they're trying to get out through the snowstorm. Where what we heard was if we could still let people park there during a snow emergency, but let's be more, let's control where they come in, where they go out, and could we designate one area for them to park so that people don't just come in from all different directions, driving up over the curbing, and so that's the intent there.
Would you be putting like curb cuts on these areas?
There's nothing proposed there now. It would be future design. It's just a visual to, it was part of their conceptual idea. But they could use existing curb cuts coming in from, Byfield School and whatnot.
I think it's great because if you go on the Wood Street side, you can see both sides of the curb. Typically, you would see one side of the curb and the other would be grassed, right? But the cars go over there to get off the street.
Yes.
Because they don't have off-street parking. It's understandable.
Yep.
I like a clear idea of where they could go and then have it sustainable. Tim's questions we're asking and answered, that you drive on it and it's still going to be a grass when you leave. And right now, as you said, willy-nilly. So is there any other questions from the council? No? Okay. This was tremendous. Thank you so much for all the information. What's our next step in regards to a motion? Is this receive and file at the moment? There's no, you don't need any action at this point.
Yes, we as part of our grant, the public participation process and public education process, we promised that we would present this to the public in front of the council. And for this very reason, you guys, there's obviously a lot of interest in the issue, and we're thank you for your time and for letting us present to you.
Thanks, Ed.
Excellent.
Okay. And we'll be back for the next grant application.
The no match grant application, if you would. We appreciate that. Is there a motion to receive and file?
Motion to receive and file?
Second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr.
Did
Chairman,
we say thank you, Arnold? I'm sorry. Thank you, Arnold.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you
Madam
too.
Clerk.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, next item on the agenda is I3, and this is David Scarpino and Lori Cruz, the subcommittee for the Bristol Christmas Festival, in regards to appreciation for town support for the Christmas market event and remarks on the event.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. We'll try to make this brief. I know it's been a long night and Christmas is coming upon us.
It's going really quick now. We've been here for a while. so-
I know I'm gonna go quick. But I do have a lot of people that I do want to recognize. When we came to you and shared the vision of what the Christmas festival would mean to the community, to the families, to the children, and to the businesses. And Lori will talk a little bit about the businesses. I think we hit our mark. Some people say we could do a few things a little bit differently. But when something successful happens, it doesn't happen by accident. There's a lot of work, a lot of volunteers, but the cooperation we receive from the town and the departments is beyond unbelievable. It was so good and so cooperative, and everybody was rooting for us. So I want to thank the town council, especially for the permission to serve some holiday cheer. Only one. It went over very, very big, and we do appreciate that. To Steve Contenti, the administrator, and Carol Mello. Every time you went into their office, they were there for you. talking to Melissa. We stubbed our toe on something and Melissa tried to get to a yes. We weren't able to, but the effort was always there to, how can we make this happen for you? The Department of Public Works, Chris Perella, great. I mean, outstanding department leader and town leader, and Paul Mello. They came down all the time to make sure when we were there, do you have everything you need? Can we get you something else? Make sure we understood everything that was going on. And I know when I'm handing out praise, I'm supposed to do it with an even hand, but I'm not gonna tonight. Because the real stars of this event are the Bristol Police Department. Under the leadership of Chief Lynch, just absolutely fantastic. And I know there are two individuals in the back. Oh, there are three. Oh, my goodness. Listen, Lieutenant Steve St. Pierre and Sergeant Mike Vieira are absolutely, when I say an asset to this community, they're more than an asset. When I hear the term thrown around nationally about community policing, this is an example of community policing. They're out there all the time. They're there for us. What else do you need? How can we help you? And if there's a way to highlight this to other communities, this is the way policing should be. They're part of the fabric of this community. They're a tremendous asset, and I can't thank them enough. So on behalf of the committee, Lori, the sub chair, Mike is the general chair, and he'll try to sneak up here and thank somebody. I just want to thank you for everything you've done for us. And hopefully we were a success and we did something good by this town, because it does a lot for us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Merry Christmas. I got to
Merry
start by
Christmas.
saying Merry Christmas because we are the Bristol Christmas Festival, right? So I'll throw Happy New Year in there too. I'm here to speak on behalf of some of the real positive feedback we got from our businesses on this event. And what I'm not going to speak about is any kind of praise that we were given about how wonderful this was. That's not a goal of what I actually want to say. So Chris, you had asked me, I believe it was a couple of days after the event, I was getting a key or whatnot with Carol, if I had any kind of hard numbers exactly how these businesses might have benefited from the events such as ours. And I'm only going to give you guys little snippets because, again, Christmas season, it's getting late. So this is from Hut Point Emporium. So the Christmas festival that took place this year, our store was very busy on Saturday, the 11th. We had an increase of 78% increase in sales. On Sunday, December 12th, we had an increase of 74% in sales. These comparisons were made compared to the same highest grossing weekends per COVID. These sales for the Emporium were the highest grossing sales that they have had in one weekend since they've been open. So let me go on to another one. They also are saying that they're continuing to see some positive support from customers that came in as they're getting numerous requests still for items to be mailed out. Artists were contacted, items were kind of like going off the shelves. So artists actually were contacted. Can you make this? We have a customer in New York that really loves this. Can you recreate this? So it's really trickling out to other states. This one is from Wink. So since the event nonstop, how everybody loved the festival. But one thing I loved about what he had mentioned, Justin, as the owner is, these events and large sales, they generate not only business of a much needed changing times such as ours, but they also cushion many businesses such as mine and many of my colleagues' businesses to get them through the upcoming winter months. And that, as we all know within our businesses, that is where everybody kind of takes the dive, like January, February, March, and things really start picking up, end of March. And then we also have Karen Jewelers. We made some great sales, but most importantly, we made new acquaintances and customers. In our business, it's word of mouth. These 2 days definitely increased our customer base. Thank you for the hard work. as we all know that we all appreciate the walk-ins and we appreciate, everybody in town, but we also appreciate the fact that we have increased our customer base by a few hundred. And these folks are also still contacting them. Do you still have that piece for sale? You know what, I really love that piece. Can we kind of like make a bargain with it? So I'm here to say that events such as these, where it benefits the businesses in such a manner that it's able to tie them over. Your support is greatly appreciated, but I just wanted to come here and kind of represent what this meant to the businesses, to have events such as what we put on and then the continued events that we have. We also have a snippet from the Beehive Pantry. Now, obviously, we know where they are. They're on the other side of town. She stated, we were incredibly busy, even at the opposite end of town. Customers were lined up down the street. We could not believe that something that was generated in the town area actually affected our point of sales for that weekend. And then again, I'm not here to talk about, the praise or anything like that. It's really to talk about how these large events, what they really mean to the business owners. And so, we're hoping as a committee to, one of our goals is to, work with the BMA, work with the businesses. And one of our focuses in the past couple of years has been, what can we do to help the town of Bristol as our season? We're right before the kind of dock season coming into the town for businesses. But that's it. That's all I wanted to share with you guys, just to really give you guys just some snippets of, what these events really mean to businesses.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
Did you add something? Chief.
I'm not on the agenda, but
I'm going to
just
give
wanted
the,
to
go
add a
ahead,
couple of
please.
words. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, thank you. I did a little searching online before I came over here, and I just wanted to read a couple of things that I found. Bristol Christmas Festival is perfect for pretending you're on the set of a Hallmark Christmas movie. That's from onlyinyourstate.com. Bristol, Rhode Island knows how to do Christmas right with the annual Bristol Christmas Festival, tripping.com. And my personal favorite, Christmas in Bristol, Rhode Island is unlike any other place, except maybe the North Pole. That's Parade Magazine. So that was just 3 quotes that I found on websites, not social media sites. I'm talking about websites for people to find events and go places like Rhode Island Monthly and Providence Media and the Bay. Lots of different comments in there. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to not only thank the town council, town administrator, DPW and police, but also the committee. We have a tremendous amount of creativity on the Christmas committee, even though we have a very small committee. And I'm just very proud and very thankful for the team that I have. So thank you all.
Thank you. Chief?
I just wanted to echo what Dave had said, Lori, and in praise to the Bristol Police Department. I was out of pocket with COVID protocols, and Lieutenant St. Pierre, Sergeant Vieira, who was in the back, and Sergeant Paul Medeiros. They're not only Bristol residents, but they care deeply about the community and the outcomes that we want to have as a police administration. And I'm indebted to them, and I also want to personally thank them. They put a lot of time and effort. It just wasn't an assignment. There were walkways that were made with barricades. There was coordination with all of the town departments. Lieutenant St. Pierre put together not only a traffic plan, but a safety plan to make sure that everybody came. God forbid a disaster had happened. He was well prepared with that, with additional personnel. And they put a lot of volunteer hours in as well to make sure it was a positive event for the community, and had a lot of support with the town administrator, with the other town departments to make it all happen. So, and it's a pleasure to work with the Christmas Festival Committee. They're very easy to work with, and when we make suggestions, that they're very understanding and just fantastic to work for. And I'm very humbled as the police chief to hear the accolades once again for the police department. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Council?
I just wanted,
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I came down, well, Saturday I drove by and I felt awful, with the rain and the weather and so forth. I thought, this is going to be a bomber. Well, not really at all. I mean, folks were lined up Church Street, in lines. There were lines all over the place. This was on Saturday. So I thought maybe Sunday is a little easier. So I said, let me go down and get some kettle popcorn. Well, so much for that. Good thing I figured out how to park behind the building. So that was easier to find a parking spot. That was about the only space I could find, knowing that folks were not going to come one way. But anyway, that being said, I went lined up over there. I was way past the town hall to get a bag of popcorn. In the meantime, I had the opportunity to speak with some of the folks around me. There were folks from the other side of the state, from actually Richmond, and they says, I can't believe this is the thing that we need on the other side of the bay. There were a couple of the folks that I had a chance to turn around and back from Massachusetts, actually. And, to the point that Mike hit it right on the head, by the comments made from those folks, the same thing from them. It was very much appreciated to see our vendors being able to capitalize on this event and actually do well. And as it was pointed out, this obviously has a ripple effect, as we saw, people going as far as, Franklin Street and some of the other businesses. You could see even going the other direction, going south. Actually, when I pulled down Union Street to come here, I'm going, I can't go anywhere. So it took me a good 10 minutes, but thanks to the folks in the back there, in blue, they certainly made it happen, keep things going, and obviously, allow for pedestrian traffic as well. So it's very much appreciated on both ends. Great effort, great job, well done.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment as well, because I thought it was a fantastic event. I loved it. I was excited about it when it was mentioned, like the European Christmas markets, which is like one of my main places I want to go someday. And I love the little stalls that you had in Maine. I wish like all of them were like lining the streets. That was so awesome. And, when I came down, I came down like on Saturday evening, but I drove around a few times from work. I was working on Saturday morning and I was like, oh my gosh, look at all these people. It was amazing. But on Sunday, it's just parking it. I have not seen so many people looking for parking all over downtown, except for the concerts on, and they, the 4th of July concerts and the carnival when they go back and forth. And I really appreciate the job that you guys did. It was awesome. I tried to I think I emailed Dave and tech and Facebooked Lori. And I was like, oh my God, that's so exciting. And even the police do an awesome job. Every department did an awesome job. But I think what was mentioned is like the investment of the police officers, because I was talking to one of them and he had like all these, the enthusiasm was the end of the day. I can't remember if it was the first day or the second day. And it was like, they should do next year, they should do this and they should do this. And it's very enthusiastic about things that could happen and how things could be done slightly differently. And I just think it was an awesome event and I thought it was terrific. So thank you so much for the idea, whoever had the idea, and for executing it so well and, and getting it out there. I said to someone who was coming to drop something off to me, I said, I can meet you somewhere. It's really, really busy downtown. And she's like, no, I'm going to come down and walk my dog anyway. And then she pulls up kind of like half across the driveway and half across the sidewalk. And she was like, oh my God, you were right. I should have met you somewhere. This is like crazy down here, but it was awesome. And thank you so much for doing it. And I know the businesses were just ecstatic and they've been very public about it. And, in the local paper and so forth. So.
I'll jump on Mary and everybody's enthusiasm to the Bristol Christmas Festival. You guys blew it up. You did a phenomenal job. I mean, bringing that many people into town, I was just blown away by the amount of people. It felt like 4th of July in the winter. So you've positioned us well for next year and opening our marketing plans to opening more businesses and getting more people involved and looking to see where this goes. And to our Bristol Police Department, excellent job. I got a ton of feedback from people from Vermont, Connecticut, all over the place. They felt safe. They felt like they were having a good time. So again, kudos to all of you guys. Excellent job.
Good job, everybody. Maybe they'll start filming some Hallmark movies over here next year or something like
Yeah.
that. So,
You know what I thought was really funny? I just have to say this one thing, like when I came down State Street on Sunday, and it was maybe like around 1, and I see the Porta Johns across the street, and there is a line of like 20, 25 people there. I said, wow, this is like a crowded event. And I had not gotten downtown yet to see the people around up Church Street to go into the building. And so I say, like, there was even like 20, 25 people just waiting for the Porta Johns. I mean, that's how many people there were down. So.
There's nothing left to say. So I won't. So outstanding job, everyone. I think it was, and I think all the points were made. It was wonderful. And I must say, I'll equate it also to the lighting this year, where it was brought back to basics. And I loved that. I don't want to say classic, but I don't know another word to come up with it. The lighting, because there were so many things in the way of success this year, it was brought back down. And I think it was outstanding because of it. I like going back to our roots, and sometimes more is more, sometimes less is more too. And this event, I think, captured that well too. There was certainly a tremendous amount of people, but it was also back to basics. It was about people standing with people and meeting people they had never met and leaving with a smile on their face. And that's classic Bristol. So nice job, everyone. We just need a motion to receive and file.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thanks again, everyone.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is I4, and this is Community Development Director Williamson in regards to the American Rescue Plan project funding.
Diane, good luck trying to keep up with that kind of thing. So
Yeah, this is a little bit less jazzy, as we say.
yes,
Not as many people in line.
but really important. Go ahead.
And so just to clarify, this is actually a correspondence from the finance director to you. Since she couldn't be at the meeting tonight, I told her that I would, help answer any questions that you may have. What she has provided you is a memo and a new matrix of the proposed projects with not to exceed budget amounts for the $6.4 million in American Rescue Plan Act funding that the town will see. If you might recall, back in May, I had provided a memo with a listing of projects, somewhat discrete projects with very specific budget amounts. What we have found is that there are other projects in town that we have on our list that could be eligible for funding through the American Rescue Plan Act. And we wanted to provide a list, a more comprehensive list to the council that would be somewhat flexible in terms of, these were the projects, but as different grant opportunities come our way and dollar amounts might change based on grants or other funding sources like the infrastructure bank or in federal infrastructure funds, that we would just kind of be able to take the projects off of the list with the funding that would total the 6.49 million, but we didn't want to be coming back as projects kind of rolled in and out of the list.
So is it fair to say that there's other funds potentially we had budgeted infrastructure, but now we know that there's an opportunity for infrastructure funding through another source, so we're able to use these funds in different, more effectively? Is that, Mr. Administrator? You look like you wanted to share something.
Yeah, the way I like to explain it is we have a lot of shovel-ready projects ready to go. In with this new infrastructure money that's going to be coming available shortly, we know some of that most likely will apply to these projects. So we increased the amount of the American Recovery Fund allotment to specific projects to max out and complete these projects. We just want to get the projects done. So whatever funding source that we get first, that's what we want to use, because we know we have additional funding coming. So this would allow us, if, for example, if Tanyard Brook or the Varnum Street area watershed study is ready to go to construction, we can use the full amount of the ARP funds because we know we have infrastructure money coming for Tanyard Brook. So it's going to allow us to apply funds quicker to the projects.
Fair enough. And you're looking, if this council agrees, for a motion that we authorize this adjustment? Is that fair?
Yes, I think that's the correct motion. And the idea is that these are the projects and again, it's a little bit more than 6.4 million, but we'll be using other funding to make up the gap. And we'll be able to adjust things on this list as other grant opportunities come forward and still be able to use the full allocation that we've got for the ARPA funds.
Council?
So the only addition here is the sewer department addition, right?
Correct, correct. And then the finance director has given you budget amounts that are not to exceed amounts.
Right.
Previously, what I had given you were more budget amounts to equal exactly the 6.4 million. We're over that now because we're going to be using other funds to match this money. So yes, yes. But that is the only new project on the list.
If I, another, exactly. So another clarification would be, to help explain it. We had the $6.4 million allocated or split up amongst the projects. This would allow, if we get, it would allow us to complete a project.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
I got it. Understood. Well, and as the world continues to change and opportunities continue, and we have an outstanding record of taking advantage of grants, then this allows us to be able to do that, as you said, to complete projects. And as other opportunities present themselves, use different funding sources. So, okay. Is there any other questions from the council?
No.
So the motion would be then to authorize these adjustments.
So moved. Second.
So we had a motion by Tony, seconded by Tim. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is I-5, and this is Bonds Council in regards to the reimbursement and borrowing resolution for the Series 2022 bonds.
Sandy Mack,
Good evening.
it's nice to see you up here. I know you've been there for a while.
It's
So-
okay. I've learned a lot. Now I know why when we started doing this resolution in October, we were at 11.360. And then we went to 7.55, and I'm here tonight for 5,702,000.
Isn't that wonderful?
It's a great thing.
It is.
In any event, I'm also here at the request of the finance director, who asked me to bring the resolution. This is a combined resolution. It's both the reimbursement resolution and the borrowing resolution. You recall that when you adopt a reimbursement resolution under the federal tax code, you can use your own funds and then reimburse yourself with bond proceeds if you take such a resolution. So this qualifies as a reimbursement resolution. It's also a borrowing resolution, and there was a fair amount of work done by the administrator, the finance director, and the various departments with respect to capital projects. And now, having listened to a little bit of the ARP discussion, I understand why it was delayed to the December meeting, because they were looking to maximize grant money and not all valuable projects, but borrow for only those projects where there are no other sources of funds. So you can see that it's almost a $6 million reduction from the original scope of projects that we were looking at in October. So I will take you through the resolution with a couple of caveats. Whenever you borrow money, you either have to have an enabling legislation, which Bristol has, and the two enabling pieces of legislation is the 2016 Chapter 239, 280, and then the 2012 legislation 429, 471. Those two pieces of legislation had various categories of projects. And so many times I come before you for a portion of that legislation to fit some of the projects, because that legislation can only be used for those projects. Then we have section 414 of the town charter, which is unique to Bristol. Not many other communities have this. And that allows you to borrow under Rhode Island General Laws 4512(2) for up to 15% of your operating budget. So It's a little bit of a complicated resolution, but I'll walk you through. So the first series of projects come under the 45-12-2. Those projects total $4,402,920. They're broken into 3 different subcategories, and I'm on page 2 of your resolution. The first is the $1,402,000. And that $1,402,000 relates to a dump truck, replacement of a dump truck. It relates to a trash compactor, biofilters, odor control. And then finally, there's miscellaneous equipment for the sewer department, and in particular, a tub grinder. Don't ask me what that is. I'm just reporting what the scope of the project is. The second is the marina expansion bonds. It's up to $2.4 million to finance construction and capital improvements related to the expansion of the marina. The third is the public building bonds, and that's in the amount of $600,920. That is solely dedicated toward Wally School. So that's all your 45-12-2 money. Then we have the 2012 legislation. And what we're authorizing under that is almost 300,000, 299,000 and 80,000. A portion of that is for drainage bonds. A portion, and actually it's all for Wally School and drainage bonds. And the drainage bonds are going to be at the police department. Then we have 239-280 of the public laws of 2016, and that's a straight $1 million. And that also is going for the public buildings, Wally School as well. So Wally School is being funded by 2 separate pieces of legislation to get to the full amount of $1.8 million. The next series of sections in the bonds legislation reflects that this is going to be a competitive bond issue. We're going to issue an official statement. I'll make sure you all get copies because it's a great summary of different aspects of town government, has the overlay of the Bristol County Water Authority and the school department. We'll also make sure that you get the rating agency assessment. I'm proud to say, both as a Bristolian and as your bond counsel for well over 35 years, that we have continued to show the rating agencies that the management of the town is excellent. And that reflects in the ratings that you get for your bonds, which then translates into lower interest rates. So I try to make it a point to make sure that Julie delivers to you both the rating assessment as well in their review, as well as the official statement. We have not set the actual bond sale yet. Of course, we need this resolution. The next step will be the finalization of the official statement. That won't happen in 21. We'll start that in January. We'll go to market. There's, I think, an urgency to going to market quicker, given the rising interest rates. These are going to be tax exempt bonds. That's good. The difference between the taxable bonds and the tax exempt bonds is growing. So it's good that these projects all fit within the tax exempt because we're expecting, still a very favorable rate. This legislation, this bond resolution also authorizes the chairman of the town council, the town administrator, the town treasurer, and the town clerk to sign documents, and the rates to be accepted by the chairman of the town council and the town treasurer. Any questions?
I think you captured it perfectly.
Thanks. Nice being somewhat
you
left.
Council?
Just very quickly, question. So we're talking about borrowing and reimbursement, correct?
Yeah, so the reimbursement allows you to take money in your general funds. Let's
Right.
say you have a shovel-ready project. The minute you authorize it tonight, you can start spending money from your general funds. When we do the actual bond issue, we sell the bonds and we actually close, you then can reimburse your town funds. So it's a nice technique to keep things moving while
Right.
we delay things getting
Thank you.
documents
I
signed.
just had a quick question in favorable rates. What did you mean by that, favorable rates? Is there a range right now that they're
So
Do
this
you
is gonna, this is an interesting bond issue because we have both equipment, which is a shorter term and a longer term for so we have 20-year bonds and we'll have 10 or 15-year bonds. I think you can expect a very, 2.5%. Now, this is not my role as a
No, I
lawyer.
know.
It's the financial advisors do this.
Yep,
But what we're
I
seeing
understand that.
is between 2 and 3%, which is still very favorable, all in. So I think your rating is pretty good. I think it's going to depend upon what else is in the market. Obviously, the world has a schedule of its own that, but the financial advisor is very good about making sure that we don't enter the market at other times where our bond issue will be dwarfed by another bond issue. And we have that flexibility because of the reimbursement resolution. We also, we watch the markets. We have the flexibility to pull the trigger or to delay it. So your authority, and I always prepare your votes to say or another time, so it's not a set date. So if we see the market moving away and it's just not an advantageous time, we just wait. And then when the market comes back, and it's been pretty volatile in the last month or so. So when the market comes back, we're right in.
Good.
So I expect a favorable, I expect a favorable bond issue.
Keep knocking.
Thank
Anyone
you.
else? No? Sandy, help us with the motion, please.
So I would recommend adopting the resolution before you.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to adopt the resolution. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Sandy.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
You
Same
too.
to you as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, the next item on the agenda is I6, and this is Director Williamson request for executive session.
So we'll take that at the end of the meeting.
The next item on the agenda is J1, and this is the RFP 969, and this is for the stage and sounds for the Bristol 4th of July concert series for 2022. We did have a bid opening today at noon. We received one bid from ATR Treehouse in the amount of $77,790.
Could I just ask a quick question? I don't remember this coming before us in the past. Is this a new item they're doing, or has it always been bid and I just missed it?
I don't believe it's ever been
I don't think
bid
it's
out
either.
before. I think it's the first time.
Is it just something that they felt would be better, or something that just didn't happen in the past for whatever reason?
I believe to be compliant and to make sure that they are competitive with the people who are actually bidding for that, to make sure that they get the most competitive rates.
Right, okay.
I agree, Mary. I
Thank-
don't recall this ever
Yeah.
being in front of us. So what's this council's pleasure?
Make a motion to refer to the town administrator or to the 4th of July committee or both? Or the town, then that's with the
We've done
motion.
enough to you, Steve. Do you really want something else?
Can I apply the 77,000 towards the new stage?
Yeah. That's a great question.
Merry Christmas.
So
Second.
You referred that to the.
Refer to the town administrator to act in the best interest
And
of the
Tim
town.
seconded that motion. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is K1, and this is Alan Klepper from the Bristol County Water Authority. This is the monthly report for December.
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to receive and file. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And the next item on the agenda is K2, and this is the Bristol County Water Authority. This is the construction update as of December 1st, 2021, December 7th, 2021.
Also a motion to receive and file.
Good. Motion by Tim, seconded by Mary. Discussion?
Just very briefly, it was very interesting to see the dates that apply to each one of the projects and how they're moving along. So, it certainly benefits many people for water pressure and many of the other needs in town regarding the water. So nice to see those moving along.
So on a less than positive comment here is that I would ask that in the future, when we're doing major construction like this, that we pick one major road, because both Hope Street and Medicom were not shut down, but my goodness, it was really tough. So anytime we do, if it's possible, I understand, right? But if we can work a little bit closer and make sure that we're not doing both at the same time, I understand we're at the limitations of many things. I think National Grid was on Hope Street, but wow, We only have 2 roads, and boy, does it show when these things are getting done.
And as to your point, it's coming back in the spring again.
And it's good that these things are getting done, and I understand it'll get better. I think it's like hip surgery. Boy, are you glad when it's done, but wow, does it hurt while it's happening. So any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Love that analogy. Ouch.
Motion would be to convene into executive session pursuant to 4246(5)(a)(5) acquisition and lease of real property and 4246(5)(a)(2) litigation, Reese versus DeMayo tax appeal.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Good night, everyone at home, because we're going into executive session. I will say for this council again, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and Happy Holidays. Thank you.
Merry Christmas. Bush Festas.
Merry Christmas.